Welcome to the Activate and Illuminate podcast with Mel. I'm your host, Mel, and together we'll be chatting with everyday people living extraordinary lives. So they've learned how to activate their potential and are helping to illuminate others. So I hope you will join me in listening to their journey. And if you like what you hear, and I think you will, I'd love for you to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends and family. The world could use a lot more activation and illumination. Have a great day. Hi, guys. So today you are going to hear from a young guy. Well, he's young to me, but a young guy who, in his 20s, who has done remarkable things. So his name is Calem Watson. Now, I had the pleasure of witnessing and watching one of his presentations of his journey in Edmonton, Alberta. Now, he has undertaken a 3,000 kilometer solo canoe trip. He went all the way up through the Northwest Territories, up through whatever that passage up there is called, and then ended up in northern Saskatchewan. So he went through multiple river systems, and honestly, his journey by himself and what he was able to accomplish was absolutely amazing. So honestly, this story just was so inspirational to me, because so many people, I think, would never ever give themselves permission to do something like this, or think that maybe they couldn't do it. And one of the things that he shared with me was that until he had done his first canoe trip, he didn't even know how to canoe. So he just did it. And now he's doing these massive, amazing long adventures, and just his life has been taken a completely different turn. So I love this story. I think it gives the average person just the ability to think, oh, wow, maybe I can do something that I want to do. And he is just a lovely gem that you're going to want to listen to. Well, hello and welcome. Today, you guys, we have Calem Watson. Now, Calem, I had the honor of hearing him speak in Edmonton, Alberta. I was actually referred to him. I had a friend hear him speak in Red Deer and said, Mel, you got to go meet this guy. You got to find this guy. You got to hear his story, and he would be an absolute gem to have on your podcast. So we did it. And welcome, Calem Watson. Now, Calem has a fascinating journey of, honestly, there's so many questions that I am excited to ask him, because his journey is one of such incredible fortitude and determination and perseverance, and you're going to hear all about it. But he did a solo canoe trip, if I'm not mistaken, about 3,000 kilometers, and his whole presentation that I got to see was on that canoe trip. So Calem Watson, welcome, and thank you so much for just, first of all, undertaking that journey and giving us all a little taste of it. But thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad you enjoyed my story.
Yeah. So tell us, how long has this been a dream for you? Like, was this something that was just born in the last, few years, or was this something that you had seen yourself doing for a long time?
Like doing big adventures like this, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess I'd always had a love for adventure and outdoors since I was pretty little, I'd say. But when I really decided I want to do these big canoe trips was probably actually in 2019, like the start of the whole COVID thing when there was all those lockdowns. I was working as a fishing guide at fishing lodges, but they were all closed, so there was no way to go up to those places that I really enjoyed. So a partner and I ended up going on a 20-day canoe trip. We had never canoed before, really didn't know at all what we were doing, but we just bought a canoe and went. And it was that was the time of my life. And I think from then I just knew I wanted to spend a whole summer doing some sort of a big, long canoe adventure.
Wow. Where were you working?
Worked at a couple different fishing lodges, some in northern Saskatchewan and some in northern Manitoba.
Okay. Okay. So this now I heard your presentation on your latest journey, but you've had a couple of big journeys, have you not?
I've had, I guess, two really big ones, I'd say, or two like longer than average ones.
Just briefly describe both of those so we know a little bit about exactly what those were.
Okay, so yeah, like my two really big ones was in 2023. I did a canoe trip across the Northwest Territories. That was my first ever really big trip, my first solo canoe trip. And that was about 4 months. And it was, yeah, it was just an amazing trip, incredible scenery, great fishing. I met a lot of really awesome people up there, beautiful place. And then last summer, I did another big canoe trip. This one was not quite as long as that one, a little shorter, but it was more difficult, I would say. And it was across parts of Manitoba and Nunavut, Northwest Territories. And then I finished in Saskatchewan, where I'm from.
Wow. So what would you say was the hardest part of that last trip?
The hardest part of the last one, I guess the hardest part of those big long trips, I guess, is probably well, when you're solo, I guess probably being alone is probably like, it's kind of it's like one of the best parts, but it's also one of the harder parts at the same time. And then that trip had a lot of upstream travel and some portaging and stuff. So it was kind of a much more challenging trip than the one I did across the Northwest Territories.
Now, when I saw your video footage, like there was no words to describe the bugs. No words to describe. Like I had no clue that like even just watching the whole experience of that was something. You know, I saw your face all swollen up. At any point on this last journey, were you concerned about any health challenges or anything that would, impact your ability to carry on?
No, I didn't really have any health issues in the last trip. I take a first aid kit. Last trip, I barely even opened it up, so that was good. There was a lot of bugs, but yeah, like this last trip was kind of some especially buggy areas, and yeah, it kind of was. My face was all swollen up after the first couple days, but kind of once I feel like once it does that once, it kind of doesn't really do that again. Like you almost kind of get your body just kind of gets used to it. I think like I got swollen up after the first couple days, and after that, there's still lots of bugs, but you just don't notice it as much. I think your body kind of gets used to it.
So, what kind of education did you have? What kind of schooling did you have? I'm so curious because and just tell me a little bit about your experience as a child and parenting that would put you into a role like this that prepared you for this.
Yeah, like so I guess yeah, when I was younger, like my parents would take me and my siblings on these big camping trips. We never went like we were never roughing it. Like we always had a camper or an RV or something. But when you're little and even if you have those amenities, you get to the campground, you there might just be a little patch of forest, but when you're young, you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere as soon as you get away from the campground. So I always say that that's probably kind of what got that explorer in me at the start, just kind of those little things when you're little. And yeah, I don't know. I guess I kind of just never really lost that little sense of an explorer I had when I was a kid. And I kind of just always kept that with me. And I started working at these fishing lodges and discovered, all just how big Canada's north is and how there's just really, and you could never explore it all. There's just so much out there to see and experience. And once I figured that out, I was drawn to it and then discovered canoeing, which is like the perfect way to get up there and travel around.
I've never done a very long canoe trip. My husband and I did a just a short canoe trip, but he got to ride up front like Cleopatra and fish while I paddled at the back.
You had it pretty good then.
But yes, but actually after watching your trip, it inspired me. I was like I want to I'd done a little bit of kayaking at some different times and I'm like I just feel like I mean I'm in no way am I a great paddler of any sort, but it inspired me to want to go and do something that felt like an adventure. That's what it inspired me to do.
Yeah, yeah, and then that's kind of like the goal too. Like, I mean, I always tell people like I don't know, like going on a canoe trip it's really not like as difficult as people think it is. Like if you could especially if you take a route without much portaging, like and no white water, you don't really even really need to know much how to paddle. If you can just paddle your canoe in a straight line, that's pretty much all you really need to know if you're willing to kind of take that risk and figure it out when you're out there, sort of.
Have you? Now, I had seen this show. I don't think it was on Netflix. It was on something else, but it was called Finding Farley. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that, but that's the family that canoes across Canada to meet
Yeah, they
people,
follow
right?
in Farley Mowat's footsteps and they go from Calgary all the way to Nova Scotia and with a 2-year-old, a
Yeah,
2-year-old and a dog.
it's
Don't
really
forget
funny.
that.
It's really funny you say that, like just to show how small world it is. I actually met that 2-year-old. He came to my presentation in Calgary. His name's Zev, and he's a really cool guy. Like he's done a big canoe trip from Calgary to Mississippi
So
in
how
order
old
to
is he
stand.
now?
I know he's quite young. I think he's younger than me. He's probably early 20s, I think, or maybe I don't know. He might even be only 20 or something. I can't quite remember. But yeah, he was a really nice guy. We chatted a bit about canoeing, adventures, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's
I
crazy you mentioned that because I had just met him. Well, I guess it would have been 2 days before I met you, pretty
Oh,
much.
okay. I didn't realize. I thought that was a fairly recent show. I didn't realize it was 18 years old already.
I think it. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't think there's been more than one family that did that, so I'm sure that's the same one. I didn't. I'll have to watch. I'd heard about it, but I didn't know there was a film. I guess so. I'll check that out for sure.
Yeah. So I saw your presentation and I saw that you had some sponsorship, but yet when I got there, you were like running the whole thing yourself. You were taking tickets, you were presenting on stage. You did an amazing job. You had an amazing PowerPoint.
Well, thank you.
Do you currently have sponsorship or do you currently have anyone helping you out with this journey and providing awareness?
No, like when I each show I do, I try to find like a local store to help spread the word. Like when you came to the Edmonton shows with AQ Outdoors. They have a place in Edmonton and Calgary where they sell like paddling and camping gear. So I partnered up with them 2 years in a row, just and they kind of just help spread the word, and they give out some prizes and stuff like that. So yeah, but
Yeah.
I find whenever I do a show, I always like to find a local place like that to partner with because it really helps bring people out and add some credibility to the event, I guess. Because I think some people are they're not sure what to expect going to a canoeing presentation because there's really not many things like that, I guess.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I have never seen, and then for you to be basically you were a one-man show and you were taking care of everything, and it just inspired me. As I have experienced, so many different kids and different, you know, people the same age as you. I'll be honest with you. 25, 4, and a 22-year-old. So
Oh, right
pretty
on.
pretty close in there. I had them all right in a row. But I know a lot of young kids, and I would say that the last 4 or 5 years and the whole COVID stuff of everything that we have gone through has really, put a damper on things like adventure and a damper on things just on travel in general. And I would say if it's me from the outside looking in, I would say that our your generation of kids has been hit with some really hard things. Would you say that the last 5 years has made you more able to do these things, or has the stuff that's been going on in the outside world affected any of your ability to do that?
I guess I'm kind of a funny case, I guess, because I that whole COVID pandemic pushed me to get into this, I guess, and I guess for like wilderness travel, I guess is one thing that even during the pandemic, you could do that. Maybe they kind of tried to scare you out of it or tried to word it that you couldn't do it. Unfortunately, they're doing a lot of stuff like that, even trying to like I think some places, there'd be like a fire ban or something. But was there really supposed to be a fire ban, or was that just to keep people from going out there. But yeah, I
Right.
was kind of, yeah, during COVID, I guess I'm kind of a bit of an introvert, I guess. So for me and my partner at the time, we were just, yeah, out canoeing and just kind of trying to enjoy ourselves, I guess. Yeah.
Living your best life.
Yeah. Yeah. Because for us, we didn't really care that we couldn't go to a restaurant or a bar or something. Because, we never really did that stuff anyways.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit, just give us like a 100-foot overview of this last adventure. Or actually, one of the things that I really appreciated hearing on your previous adventure was the place where you had found the indigenous community of only not very many people, and they had when you were having trouble with your foot, and I just was fascinated by your connection there and how they helped you out. And can you just maybe just share that story from your own words for us before we go into other stuff?
Yeah. So that was on my canoe trip across the Northwest Territories. I had just done this couple days of challenging kind of portage and travel on this little creek to get to Great Bear Lake from the Kamsel River system. And I kind of, I don't know, the one day, I don't know, it was just a kind of a perfect storm, I guess, but I ended up having like no circulation in my feet during the day, and I didn't notice it till the evening, and my like toenails got loose so they could kind of lift up off my toes and couldn't feel my feet at all. But I kind of just spent a day resting and got all the sensation back. And then I continued on this portaging and up this little river. And then when I finally got to Great Bear Lake, which was 2 days later, I discovered I had some pus under my toenails. So I had an infection. And obviously, like any sort of infection is not a good thing to have in the wilderness. And at that time, I didn't carry antibiotics with me. I had often thought about bringing them along, but I guess thinking about it isn't really bringing them along, so I didn't have them. I had like polysporin, an antiseptic, and a pretty decent first aid kit, I thought at the time. But yeah, so we had this problem on my hands. So I remember I was messaging on my Garmin, which is like a satellite messenger I take with me on these trips, so I can always keep in touch with people or ask for help if it comes down to that or something. So I was using that device to message my dad just to see if he could search up what was the best way to treat this kind of infection with what I had. And then it turns out he has a friend that's a foot doctor, so he was able to relay me some very valuable information. He said my best bet was to soak my feet in warm, salty water as frequently as I could, and then for the rest of the day keep them as dry as possible. But I didn't have any salt with me, and it's a little difficult to keep your feet dry on a canoe trip as well. But I was doing my best to kind of just soak them in warm water about 4 or 5 times a day, and the rest of the day keep them as warm and dry as possible. And then in the meantime, my dad had contacted the people in the town of Delaney, which is the only town on this Great Bear Lake, which is, it's bigger than two of the Great Lakes. It's the largest lake entirely within Canada's borders, but there's only one community on it, which is Delaney. So he talked to them. I think he talked to a couple people in their local government. I think he talked to the chief too, and they kind of told him that they were going to figure out a way to kind of get me some help. And they also suggested to try using spruce gum to treat the feet, which is kind of like has antiseptic properties and stuff. So I did experiment with that, and I think that did help for sure. And then, sure enough, a couple days after that, I get a message on my Garmin from a complete stranger. It just says, "Hey, this is Bruce. We're coming to help you out." I think that's about all it said. And at first, I was kind of pleading with him not to come, I guess, because I thought, maybe it could clear up on its own. And it was just such a long ways for somebody to come. I didn't want someone to have to come all that way just to help me. But once I got to meet Bruce later on, I could totally understand why he was willing to. Like, he's just a totally selfless, genuine, incredible person. Him and his wife are, who I got to meet later. But yeah, then, so it was about day 72 of the trip. I think it'd been maybe probably 3 or 4 days after I'd first noticed this infection. And yeah, this Bruce, Peter, and Jory, three men from Delaney, came all the way out in the boat to help me out. And they came about 300 kilometers one way So it was really, yeah, heartwarming kind of act of humanity to get that help from a complete stranger. And they weren't able to bring antibiotics. I guess the local nurse wouldn't give them up. But they did bring me some salt, extra bandages, antiseptic, more polysporin, all that stuff. And Bruce took a video of me to send to my family to let them know I was doing okay. And yeah, it was just a really, really incredible act of kindness. And it ended up paying off. A couple days after that, the infection was totally cleared up. And when I did get to Delaney, because it was on my route at the end of Great Bear Lake, the people there were just so kind and welcoming. I really got treated like I was family there by Bruce and his wife Verna, and so many other people there were just so kind. Like, I can't say enough good things about that community. They're inviting me to events there and feeding me, letting me stay at their house, taking me fishing, taking me for tours of the lake. So it's, yeah, just a really, really incredible experience that, happened because I got this infection in my toes. So it's almost kind of glad I got it now because I got to meet these incredible people through it.
This episode brought to you by protandemcanada.lifevantage.com. What if you could turn on your body to work like it was supposed to? What if you could have it remember how to handle toxins, stress, and the environment like it used to when you were young? What if it worked for your pets too? What if this is not about supplementing something that is missing, but activating something that has gone dormant? About actually turning on your body to make these things again. Learn how to activate your body now. Check us out, protandemcanada.lifevantage.com.
Yeah. Thank heavens for Spot. Hey, I've experienced it a couple of times when my husband has been off on big trips, and to be able to communicate, even if it's just once a day, or just a quick little text, like, it's pretty amazing that we have that technology, that you are actually up and, as far up. This is a question I had for you that I never asked you earlier. Were you at any point in the area where there was polar bears?
I guess on the trip across the Northwest Territories, like the last day, there could be polar bears. It would be pretty rare though. Like, it's kind of not their usual area, I guess. But they could be through there every now and then. But other than that, no. They're kind of always on the coast, to my understanding. So I haven't really done much paddling on the Arctic coast except for one day. So thankfully, I've not had to encounter those.
And it surprised me to hear that you only encountered one bear.
Yeah, on the trip across the Northwest Territories, there's quite a few bears. But then on the trip last summer, yeah, I seen, well, two bears actually. But yeah, I only seen two bears all summer, which was definitely lower than normal, I guess. But I'm not complaining because less bears is not a bad thing.
So was there any part of this last trip that scared you?
That scared me. I wouldn't really say. I guess, like, when you always take off these trips, you're always like really worried at the start. Not so much fear, but more just like worried. Am I going to be able to do it? Am I going to be able to get to the finish in time? And then I wanted to do the moose hunt at the end, so I guess that was the biggest worry. Was like, was I going to get there with enough time to be able to do that and have enough energy? And I guess that was the worry, I guess, of this trip.
But there was no point where you were like out on the journey thinking, I don't know if I can do this.
Like, there's small times where, like, I might be questioning what I'm doing out there, but generally I'm usually always able to push through. And I guess when I go on those trips, like, I guess I enjoy those. Like, I guess out there is like mostly like physical challenges, right? So once you're out there, once you've got all the planning and all that stuff figured out, it's kind of, for the most part, it's just like a physical challenge of getting through. And yeah, I guess I enjoy those challenges, and they're a type of challenge that I'm good at handling. And then when I do get in the tough spots, like, oftentimes just thinking of the people at home, friends, family, or all the people who come out to my presentations or who have, you know, enjoyed my adventure, that really does help you kind of dig deep if you have to, for sure.
So you had mentioned one spot in your presentation where you felt like it was, now you, these are my words, not your words, but it was kind of like I likened it to a spiritual experience where you felt like you were getting extra help. And I can't remember exactly what point that was. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I was getting extra. Was this in the my last presentation or that Northwest Territories one?
No, I think it was in the last presentation. Yeah, you had said that I remember you were surveying the river and you ended up going down and realizing that it was a little bit more than you had
Oh
originally
yeah,
thought.
yeah, yeah. So that was in the Northwest Territories trip. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. So there's on the Mackenzie River. There's like only 2 sets of major rapids, and I guess my belief was that generally it was a rampart set of rapids. Generally, I think at normal water levels, it's as long as you paddle on the right side, I think it's supposed to be pretty safe to go down. But on this particular year, when I was up there, it was a really low water because it's like the lowest water in over 30 years. And when the water's low, it can, really change the rapids. So I ended up going down this, and then all of a sudden, there's this two, like what us canoeists call ledges, I guess, which is generally something you don't want to paddle over, want to try and avoid. But there was the ramparts is famous for these like cliff-like walls, and those cliffs were kind of already rising up, so there was no escaping but to go over that rapid. And I'm not really a big whitewater paddler, to be honest. I don't really do a whole lot of it. I've tried to get more into it lately to try and be able to do more trips and stuff, and it is enjoyable too once you get the hang of it. But at this point, yeah, this was like by far the biggest rapid I'd ever been in, and I seen it coming, and I didn't think there was any way I was going to make it through it. Like I thought, maybe I could drown in there because those ledges sometimes the water will recirculate, they say. But anyways, there was 2 of them, so I went down the first one and I just about tipped my canoe and I took on a whole bunch of water. And then once you take on water, your it's tippy and it's also hard to steer because of all the extra weight. And then I went down the second ledge and took on more water and I kind of got spun sideways, and I was actually, like I said, the water sort of recirculates, so the water was kind of actually pushing me like upriver back towards that ledge. And I think if it would have pushed me back into the ledge, the canoe would have just filled with water. And I'm not sure what could have happened then. Maybe that could have been it. But I remember somehow, even with all the weight, the canoe just turned like a feather. And I really don't attribute that to my skill at all. It felt like, yeah, somebody was there to help me in that moment. And when I was in Delaunay, I was told this quote about when they do a drum dance that it's the ancestors were with us. And I just couldn't help but wonder, if some old river traveler of years past was there to kind of help pull me through in that moment, or some other force. Because yeah, I don't think I should have made it through there without tipping on my own, for sure.
Yeah, beautiful. So, is there anything that you would have done differently
For that moment, or for the trip in general, or
for the trip in general?
yeah, done differently. Yeah, I guess there's always like improvements you can make. On my Northwest Territories trip, I would have taken antibiotics. That's probably one of the main things I would have done differently on that one. Other than that, it was a pretty great time. So I was pretty happy with it. My last trip, maybe I would have. I don't know. I feel like my last trip, I was in a little bit of a rush almost to get to the end and do the hunting portion. So maybe I would have not rushed so much and just trusted that things were going to work out the way they were meant to. I didn't really rush crazy, but I could have maybe went a little. I usually don't like to travel fast. I like to kind of really go slow and enjoy it, sort of.
Yeah, as far as these whole journeys and putting everything together, I was mind blown when I saw your presentation at the effort that you had put into filming it, because I knew how much effort it was to film some of those shots. And well, I probably don't know how much effort it was to film some of those shots. But to me, the overall, like, even though it was a one-man solo journey, to have that cinematic experience afterwards, you had drones, you had all different types of cameras. I was surprised at the length that you had gone to film it. Do you see this going into like a feature presentation, like, perhaps the one we were talking about before, or doing something like that with this?
Yeah, that's kind of been the intent, I guess, to get them both made into documentaries or maybe a YouTube series or something. I guess I keep telling myself I'm going to do that, but I kind of keep pushing it back. So I kind of just gotta get on that. But I guess the editing is not really my strong suit. I guess I don't really enjoy that side of it, I guess. So maybe for me, like if I could, I keep saying I gotta find some. When I have got some good contacts from people of good people that could help make it into something. I just gotta take the initiative and get it done, I think. But yes, one day both of those adventures will be a documentary or maybe a two-part series or maybe more, but something you can watch for sure.
Yeah. So, as you know, you go on about life now, coming home. What's the hardest part about coming home?
Yeah, like that's honestly one of the hardest parts of these trips, I guess. Like, yeah, it's kind of a culture shock, I guess, when you go from out in the bush by yourself to kind of modern society, I guess. And yeah, it's kind of I don't know, it's kind of tough, I guess. Yeah, like I really enjoy being out there and I kind of want to be out there more and more, I find. But it does make you appreciate things too when you do come back. When you go away from all the amenities and comforts, like where once you're there for a couple months, you're kind of like, but when you get away from it, you do appreciate it more. But yeah, it's kind of tough, I guess. Like out there, I guess to me, like yeah, life just feels like so, I don't know, so much more realer or simpler and just like yeah, there's way less distractions and no internet or noise. It's just I don't know. If I really like it out there, I guess.
Yeah. Do you find most people that I've encountered like that are really sensitive to urban settings and very sensitive energetically, like they pick up things that a lot of people don't pick up. Are you like that as well?
Probably yeah. I would say like I definitely like I feel like me. I'm thriving when I'm out there. I guess like when I'm out there, like I always say like once I get the planning done, I'm on the trip. Like I just feel like I know I'm not unstoppable, but I feel like that out there, I guess, where when I'm in, civilization around other people, maybe I don't really have that same feeling, I guess. And yeah, it's kind of yeah, like internet and all that stuff, like or phones or, spending too much time on screens. Like I mean, even I have difficulties with all that kind of stuff as much as I like being outside when I'm not out there. So I guess for me, yeah, it's I think to be my best, I have to be getting some quality outdoors time every day, or else, I'm not my best for sure.
Yeah. I had done a couple of small trips, a 9-day trip across Great Slave,
Oh, awesome.
and with my husband and his aunt and uncle. And so we were just out in one boat, and we only ever saw one boat on that lake. We were only the weather was so bad. It was like, there was waves, we could only go part way to where we had originally gone because the weather was so bad and we wouldn't have made it back with gas.
Oh, wow.
But I had never experienced anything like that before of just, you're only seeing one boat. And here we are in a powered boat, not a canoe. And it was an amazing experience. I don't know if I am the type that needs to fish from 9 in the morning till 11 at night because the sun doesn't go down.
Yeah, yeah, that's nice about being up there. Yeah, you can do
But
whatever you want all night.
but yeah, it was a great experience for sure. What do you say to, young people out there that, are wanting to get into something like this or wanting to get into an adventure? What would you tell them to do? How would you tell them to start? Because I feel like there's so many people that just need the permission to be able to do something because the sense of society for the last quite number of years has just been pushing us down more and more into our internal homes and internal environments,
Oh yeah,
the
totally.
fear and the everything. It's don't travel, don't do this, don't do that. What would you tell someone sitting there at home on the couch right now? What would you tell them to do?
Yeah, I guess it really just comes down to if you want to go on these adventures, just do it. I'd honestly say that. Like, I always tell people like you don't need as much skill as as you think you do. Like like my first ever canoe trip, we had never been in a canoe before. We bought our canoe, we were in it for like half an hour, and then we ended up going on our trip. And like, yeah, we knew nothing. We couldn't even paddle the canoe in a straight line. Had never portaged. The first 2 days were absolutely grueling because we chose a route that was pretty challenging for our first time. And but yeah, we made it through that, and it was just incredible. Like I just have absolutely loved it. But yeah, you kind of just gotta, like, at a certain point, if you want to do it, you gotta. And I'm bad for this too. Like I find like oftentimes I overthink or worry too much about things, but you kind of really got to, there comes a point where you can't be perfectly prepared. I think you kind of just got to jump in and try and, just accept that there's going to be some risks, there's going to be some uncertainty, there's going to be some, challenge you didn't think about, I guess. But yeah, like canoeing is really not that, like, it's not rocket science, you're basically just getting from point A to point B as efficiently and enjoyably as you can. And yeah, like I would just say, if you want to do it, go for it. And if you don't have a ton of experience or you're worried about that, I would say, if you, whatever you lack in experience, just make up for with being cautious and careful, and just really respect the water. Don't paddle a set of rapids if you don't know how. If you're on a big northern lake, stay close to shore. Just, be really cautious, and you can most of the time figure it out.
This episode brought to you by bizbloomer.com. Bizbloomer.com is your friend to small and local businesses, a platform and directory that provides exposure and support to small ma and pa type stores or local entrepreneurs, helping them make an impact in their own local communities. Bizbloomer.com is taking the corporate out of business and helping small businesses become relevant and essential again. Businesses can get started for free. Search for BizBloomer businesses in your area. Check them out today. BizBloomer.com. That's BIZ Bloomer.com.
So if you could go back to any particular location on this, let's say this last trip, where would it be? What was your favorite part of the whole experience?
My favorite part? That's a tough question, I guess. Yeah, probably, yeah, up in the Barren Lands, like in some of the spots where I was seeing caribou crossing the river, crossing the lakes. That was probably the coolest parts. And that country right around the tree line there is really nice, where the trees kind of start to thin out and they get really spaced out, and it's kind of just like a really park-like setting. And yeah, there's caribou around, and I'd say that kind of country there at the tree line is really, really cool.
So do you have plans of a next trip? Are you guys talking about anything else? And one of the things, maybe you can answer this from a solo perspective, and then do you have anything planned with anybody else coming up?
Yeah, like I don't know, I was thinking I was gonna go on another trip this summer, and but I don't know if yeah, I would like to get like I keep saying I'm gonna do this book or do all these videos, these other trips, and I'm kind of, at the point where, like, if I don't get at least one of those things done before I do the next one, I feel like I'm just gonna keep sweeping them under the rug, sort of thing. So and then at the same time, like, my next adventure, I want to keep getting bigger and more challenging and more interesting, get some new kind of flavor to the presentation. So I'm kind of thinking too, if I took a year, did more preparation, practicing, maybe really thinking out to try and do like a really, really big adventure for my next one. I think I'm kind of leaning more towards that, instead of just jumping into another one. Maybe be patient and really try and do something extra special, maybe in a year or two or something. I
Right.
think is what I'm kind of leaning to now. And I kind of, yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to go on one this summer. And yeah, I think it'd be good for me to kind of be a bit patient. And now that I've done a couple, maybe to try and work on some skills or really think out what could be a really, really special one.
Would it be in Canada, do you think, or international?
I've got,
Not to play your hand.
yeah, I've got kind of two ideas. One would be entirely in Canada, and one could be in Canada and more places. They're kind of both really kind of stepping it up from what I've done in the past, but in different ways, I guess you could say.
Okay. Now, you had said that in the presentation that you like to do it solo because you've never met anybody that you thought would last as long as you.
Yeah, I guess maybe that's not a good way to work it. I don't know
Well,
if I
that's the way I worded it. You were probably much more eloquent.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, like in my first big trip, it was like kind of yeah, I guess, didn't really, I just really wanted to do it. And I guess if you really want to do it, it's almost kind of easier to do it by yourself, I guess, because you don't got to find a partner and find someone that's going to be committed. You can kind of just plan out yourself. So I guess that's probably the real reason I started going solo, was because it was kind of it was the best way to guarantee that my first big trip happened and got completed, I guess. But but yeah, like in the future, I can't say I'm totally stuck to going solo, because obviously, there is strength in numbers, and you're gonna definitely can benefit if you have someone that's on the same thinking as you and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I'm definitely not against doing a trip with someone else in the future, but yeah, I'm not against doing one solo again either. So
So, Calem Watson, that's home now. Are you working? Are you doing anything else outside of this presentation experience? And do you do anything else?
yeah, like I've done some like I did some guiding last summer before my trip, and I might do. Well, I'm not doing another canoe trip this summer. I might do more of that this summer. I've also got a couple. I've got kind of another possible idea for this summer that's not quite a canoe adventure, but would be a good adventure for me. And then I do want to I am getting serious about that book for the first one. I kind of I don't know. I guess for me, like I feel like if I had something else, like if I had a full-time job then and trying to write the book, I feel like I just wouldn't
Yeah,
get to it, I guess. But I've got some money saved up from the presentation, so I feel like I'm gonna try and really just focus on getting that writing, kind
good
of
for
getting
you.
that figured out.
Good for you. Are you
Thank
going to
you.
self-publish it?
Yeah, I've been researching that too, and yeah, I think the self-publishing could be an interesting way to go. I think just for me too, like with doing the presentations, I could take the book along with me, and even from doing the presentations, I've kind of learned a lot about like trying to sell the shows. I feel like I've learned a fair bit about that marketing and kind of advertising. So I think, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I would be able to sell the book if I self-published it. So as long as I really think it's a good book and I've done a good job with it.
Oh, I'm sure you would, just in based on what I've seen of you so far.
Oh, thanks.
So, is there anything else, Calem, that you can think of that you'd like to share with people?
Not really. I guess I'm kind of wrapped up for all the presentations for this year, other than a couple kind of smaller private ones.
Now,
Yeah, so
I saw that you did a couple schools for youth presentations. If people want to get a hold of you, we'll have all of your links and all of your contact information in the show notes. But are you currently booking up for bigger events and school presentations and stuff like that?
yeah, I'm kind of open to speaking anywhere, be it big, small, school, whatever. Yeah, if you're looking for an interesting story of some outdoor adventure, yeah, I'm kind of open to speaking wherever, pretty much.
Well, and like even though it was an adventure, and I'll be honest, I mean, I've never ever gone to a presentation or a talk on an outdoor adventure, even though it was an outdoor adventure, and I thought, oh, this is going to be kind of, maybe a little dry, or it absolutely was not.
Oh, thank you.
And if anything, it was almost, blended into I don't want to say like, personal help mindset world, but it made me challenge my personal health and mindset world,
Or
right? Like it made me challenge some ideas and just different ideas that I had and just and maybe pushing myself in ways that I hadn't thought about before. And so I would implore anybody that has the ability to see your presentation, whether eventually it's in an online digital format or, in person. I personally think people will pay for an online digital format for certain. So whenever you have something like that, we would absolutely love to help you get
oh,
that out
thank you.
there.
I'd appreciate that. Yeah, yeah, I did. I did do some online ones last year on my last one. So yeah, I probably, well, especially since I'm maybe not doing another big adventure this summer. Yeah, I will definitely be at some point doing a virtual version of that one too on that Zoom
Yeah.
webinars.
Yeah, and I mean, people will pay for and this is an experience. This is not an experience that is just a just a regular, I don't know, to me it felt much different than just watching somebody. It was you
Okay.
took us into the trip. At different points I was like, my body was responding to the bugs, it was responding to the rapids, it was responding to different things. So thank you for that, and thank you for sharing, and honestly, just thank you for having the courage to even do what you did, because even in the short little, few people that I know that have seen you, you have inspired us. And I think you're going to inspire a lot more people. And yeah, I just appreciate what you've done. As someone in their 20s doing all these adventures, to me, it's very exciting, very exciting. Not just for you, but for like the hope of like humanity and just moving forward, and just like maybe things will, just become fun and adventurous for people again, because I think a lot of that's been knocked out of a few.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, well, it is easy to get caught up. And I mean, there's definitely some kind of unfortunate stuff happening in society right now, but at the same time, I feel like you can't get. It's easy to get caught up in all that bad news and not try to do something good yourself. And I think that's almost one of the best ways to combat all that bad stuff happening, is just to try to be your best yourself. I think that's probably honestly one of the best ways to kind of fight all that uninspiring and negative stuff that you hear, and it's kind of everywhere now.
Wow, that is very poignant. The best way to fight all of that is to be the best yourself. Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I kind of think that that's kind of there's some truth in that. I think, yeah, like I think you can't let all this bad stuff, I guess, stop you from doing something cool or good. And I think even I need to remind myself that sometimes too, when I'm not in the wilderness a lot.
Well, Calem, I for one feel blessed to have met you and to be exposed to your world in the short part that I was.
Oh, thank you. Pleasure meeting you too. I really appreciate you, because you came a little ways to come to that presentation. So thank you.
Yeah, well, that's what we do for superstars. And thank you again.